celebrating the best new music from around the world. Welcome back to hour number 2. This is A State of Trance with Ruben de Ronde.
Hey, what's up? My name is Ruben de Ronde and welcome to a new A State of Trance podcast. And I have an absolute legend in the studio, Torsten Stenzel, aka York. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hi, Ruben.
I'm doing very great because you're here in the studio. You already signed some of my vinyls. Look here, the DJ
exactly.
Sakin, Nomansland.
Yeah,
this is not the biggest hit from DJ Sakin, but it's the second
one.
It's
like the second biggest.
One.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I was telling about this. I was
Fields of Love, A.T.B, your collaboration. Yeah.
And this is one of my personal favorites.
The Reaches of Civilization.
Civilizations. I remember, I think this was on In Search of Sunrise.
Exactly. It was the first one on the first In Search of a Sunrise, which was quite an honor nowadays, so many years later.
Back in the days, those CDs sold a lot, I think.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. Anyways, let's go back to the beginning, because in these podcasts, I always love to dive a little bit deeper into the history of the artist that's here in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some fan questions as well. And the funny thing is that I think we could talk at least 4 hours about the history of Torsten Stenzel, or maybe even more, because some of the artists that are here in the studio just have a career of, let's say, 3 or 4 years. But yours is a little bit longer, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't count exactly, but I think it's 33 years. And I have over 700 releases. So it's quite something.
Okay, let's go to the very, very first beginning, because I read that you're a classically trained musician.
Yeah, correct.
From a very young age.
Yeah, my father asked me, hey, you want to learn an instrument? I said, yes. And then I said, how about piano? I said, okay. So I started when I was a little boy.
Yeah.
And then I didn't like it. I hated it. And then he forced me. No, I hated it. I basically didn't enjoy all the practice. Okay. So I wanted to play it and then play immediately, but of course it doesn't work. So my father forced me to play, and I thank him for that. I mean, until today, thanks God he did that.
At what age did you start playing piano?
And I was 5 years old.
5 years old?
Yeah.
And you were expecting, I sit down behind this beautiful thing with the white and black keys, and I should play this straight away. And it doesn't work like that.
And I can play Beethoven straight away. And it was funny because I couldn't reach the pedals because it was so small.
Yeah.
So I was super excited to get big enough so I can play with the pedal and reach it.
Sustain notes.
Exactly.
Okay, and so you started playing piano. But I have to paint the picture here, because this is a long time ago. This is far before any dance music was played on the radio whatsoever. How did you start making music? Because I guess you were playing piano. You were together with your brother, of course, with Jörg. How did you start making music? You decided, okay, to put this in a DAW and to actually create something.
Well, I mean, in those days, if I think back, I mean, in the 70s, like you said, dance music, like that classical dance music that we know today didn't exist.
Yeah.
And of course, there were bands like, for instance, Kraftwerk.
Yeah.
Which was really the first electronic band I was listening to at a quite early stage. And then there was, for instance, Jean-Michel Jarre, or there was Mike Oldfield. And so those people, like the pioneers of electronic music, I would call them, they took they interested me a lot.
Yeah.
So once I heard, for instance, "Shine on Me, Crazy Diamond" from Pink Floyd, I heard this track with this guitar
what is this?
and those pads. I was like, what is this? How they even make that? So I quickly realized you can't just make this with only a guitar or a piano. And so I was saving up on my 12th birthday to buy my first synthesizer.
Oh, your 12th birthday. Okay, yeah.
So I bought this Yamaha DX7, and it was super expensive. And I saw it in an Aha video from Take On Me or something, some of those band videos. I saw the keyboarder, I forgot his name, playing, not Morton was a singer, but he's playing this DX7. I was like, oh, that's the thing that I need. So I saved all my money, bought it, and then quickly I realized it's not enough.
No.
I can only play something with it, and it didn't even have a sequencer, so you could just play with it and that's it.
You can save anything.
You can't save anything. No, it's gone.
Yeah.
So that was my very beginning where I started to play with electronic music when I was 12 years old, and that was in the 80s.
So you had your synthesizer, and then the moment came that you needed a drum computer or something like that.
Exactly. Then my second thing I remember was a Roland 808 that I synced up and then I had a little MIDI sync, and then I had this hardware sequencer that could save like 16 different sequences.
Yeah.
And then you had to program the drum computer and just start the sequencer, which was triggering the machines with MIDI. So it was quite complicated, but then at least I had some kind of rhythm and I had some kind of bass or whatever that I could program.
Yeah. And then so you could record stuff as well with a sampler.
Well, samplers weren't really a thing. There was only one sampler that had like just a couple of kilobytes, so you could sample like a bip, bop, bop, bop. Or there were songs that had like 5 samples in it, and the sampler was full.
So how would you record something?
On a tape machine, indeed. Yeah. So on a 1/2-inch tape, we recorded those things, or just on a cassette recorder at home. So that was the way we recorded.
So you had your drums and your synthesizer and your bass rhythm, and that was a song.
Yeah, that had to be everything. Well, of course, I bought more, and after that, I remember what was the next thing I bought? I bought like this cheap chroma synthesizer and more stuff, and then at some point I bought the 303. But I realized quickly that it's not very versatile. The only thing you can do with it was like monotone, like techno sound.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I started to build my equipment.
Do you still have those machines, or is everything gone?
I still have one of those left. And sadly, I sold the 808 like 15 years ago when I thought, you don't need this anymore.
Now.
And now it's like worth a car.
Yeah, it does. It's insane. But it's being overused again right now. Or at least the samples that come out of it. Not a lot of people
Of course. I mean, everything is based on the 909 that I also bought, of course, and the 808 drum computer. I mean, pretty much we had in every dance record somewhere.
Yeah. That's amazing. So you were sitting there recording on tape. At what age did you realize, okay, this is something that I can put together and then release something? Or this is good enough to put it out there? Because there was no dance music at that time, pretty much.
No, there was no dance music. There was no dance music. I remember Sven Väth did this electrica salsa, ba 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 ba, and I thought that's pretty cool. I mean, those were like the first tracks out of Frankfurt that I realized that are going in this direction. But even for Sven Väth, that was like commercial pop music.
Yeah. That
kind of sound we all know him later for, that techno that was not there and wasn't developed. So yeah, I started to be better. I sampled Kraftwerk and stuff like that on one thing. I remember that. And I had then a sampler, which was a 700 with this funny floppy drive with like a wobbly floppy. It wasn't even something you can grasp. Exactly. It was like this.
It was not the 1.44 megabytes. It was the one before.
It was before. Yeah. It was this flexi drive, like weird magnetic thing. So anyways, bought one of those and I sampled some Kraftwerk and built some beats underneath. And then I wanted to buy another synthesizer and met this guy randomly who was running something like a recording studio and record label. Mm-hmm. And he listened to my demos that I made, like my simple sequencer demos, and he liked it. And he invited me to the studio, and then I brought my Kraftwerk sampled whatever techno tracks. And that was called Recall 4 Contrast back in the day, and it was my first release, and that was 1989.
Yeah, I see it here. In 1989, the first release, Recall 4 Contrast, through ZYX Recordings.
Exactly.
But his mention also on Wikipedia, his partners failed to credit him as a writer, co-producer, and because of the lack of his knowledge of music industry, only Mixed by Torsten Stenzel appeared on the credits.
Of course.
While you created the tune.
Exactly. Well, I created the bass line and everything, let's say the ingredients. Yeah. But little did I know what publishing means and what writing lyrics.
You were just happy to be in that studio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was just there, and then my name was on the record. It was only on vinyl out first, and I was happy to see it. But I didn't realize that I'm actually not a writer officially on the record. So that was the rude awakening of the music industry.
Oh no! There you have the awakening.
Exactly, I have the awakening.
Ding, ding, ding. Mm-hmm. So you released a lot of tunes after that, and of course we're gonna skip to the part in, correct me if I'm wrong, the first appearance of York together with your brother Jörg as a remixer for Taucher, The Sea, in 1993. Is that correct?
You did some proper research.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
or no?
Very little know that actually.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like a very deep, dark techno vibey kind of track.
Yes. Well, we experimented because I wanted those guitars. And back in the day with Taucher, we started to, experiment more into trance direction. And then I asked my brother, would you mind playing on it? And that was the first song in that style. Let's say the first pre-York song ever. Yeah, was on that Taucher album.
Because in the meantime, from 1989 to that moment in 1993, you were also producing music with and for other people. You were also part of one of the most iconic songs, the Ayla, right?
Yeah. I mean, that I produced,
Ayla,
I think, about exactly... I had about 15 DJs I was producing.
Yeah.
And one of them, let's say the partner I collaborated the most was DJ Taucher.
Mm-hmm.
And we got this demo and I really liked the vibe and was a really nice guy, Ingo Konzi, who made it. And I met him before and then we gave it a treatment, but we changed everything. And then suddenly I had this idea to chop the melody like this. I used my Nord lead, just a simple wave, a saw wave, and played this and played it like that, and that became in that year definitely my biggest club hit.
That's one of the tunes that keeps on coming back. I play it. The funny thing is, there's a new remix of Helsloot and Jochem Hamerling. I play it every single set.
That's crazy.
I do it right now. It's not even released. I'm not sure if it's going to be released or cleared, but it's such a. As soon as there's a point in the track, it's quite deep. But that for the first time it comes and then it goes on again.
Yeah.
But the moment when that melody kicks in, people are like,
we know that.
We know that song.
We heard that before.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, let's go back to the other sides of things, because you were making music, and one of the things we talked about earlier as well of the show as well is that one of the things that I really respected about you, maybe that's something that you learned out of the first things that happened in your career, that you were listed as a mixer instead of writer, co-writer, is that you started your own label.
Yeah, because...
well, first you were an A&R label of the label Crash Records.
Correct. So I met someone who had more experience in that field, and he said basically, how about we create a platform for you so you can do anything you want and release it, and you become the A&R. If you hear something you like, you can sign it.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, I was maybe 19, it was like, wow.
All this freedom.
All this freedom, and I can run a record label. That was so exciting. I was finishing school at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And then funny enough, the very first release on this label became then a huge hit in the Netherlands, and in Italy it was N.U.K.E. Nana.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Went number 3 in the Netherlands, and suddenly we went to Hilversum playing in some TV shows and stuff, and it was ridiculous.
That is amazing.
Yep.
And it was also when, I guess, in the Netherlands, when hardcore became really massive. Too Limited was having fantastic times. You had 24/7 and those kind of acts.
Yeah.
One rapper and one singer.
Exactly.
There was a time that song was a hit.
Exactly.
As
It was the same time. And I remember we sampled a little bit from James Brown. James Brown is that? Not this one? No.
Yeah.
I
James
think
Brown,
LA Style.
Yeah.
LA Style was a project. So there was some kind of synth I was stealing. But it was only 2 seconds. And I remember putting that in there. Yeah, and exactly. It's royalty free. Yeah. But I learned that this guy is also Dutch. So he obviously heard his own sample a lot on our record.
Hey,
yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta. And also in 1995, you bought the rights to the label Planet Love Recordings.
Yes.
Which is still here and which is still your flagship.
It's still my flagship. It's still my home base. And because I realized quickly that, I had to split the sound, and Crash Records was, techno, harder, darker.
Yeah.
And we even had some like 160 BPM tunes with crazy Dominator in it and stuff like that.
Yeah, this was like the early rave sounds
exactly.
that are back right now, and they call it techno.
It's back, yeah. It's an incredible journey. Anyway, so that sound, I had to split it, and then Planet Love Records was funded by me to start, a new sound that is more melodic.
Mm-hmm.
I think we didn't even give it a name back in the day. Maybe we said trance. I don't remember exactly, but it was definitely the time before shortly IQ Records and those super cult labels started out of Frankfurt, and then Harthouse Recordings with Sven Fate started, and that influenced me, but I didn't want to send my demos around. So I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to have my own platform, and we created the label.
This was the start of Planet Love,
That
the
was the
way it
start.
is right now.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So I respect it a lot that you decide to be like, okay, I don't want to shop this around. This is my thing. I want to focus on this, and this is my little baby, and I'm going to keep everything where it is.
Yeah, because also in the back in the day, you have to imagine it was maybe the same. I don't know. It's the same today. So the A&R, even if you send it to another label, he will tell you, oh, can you take that hi-hat down? Yeah. I don't like the voice. Can we change the singer? But you're like, no, that's the vocal that I want.
Yeah.
So they started to talk into my production. And I think I had that a couple of times. And then I said, no. I'm not going to do that. This is how I want it. And this is the way we release it.
So on one side is a bit of narcissistic and being a little bit stubborn. No, it's an artist that wants to stick to the art that you create. That's what it is.
Exactly. That's really what it is. And you don't go to a painter and tell him, oh, can you paint the sea a little bit more blue?
Especially if you're an experienced A&R manager yourself, so you actually know what's supposed to be there.
Yeah, and there's funny stories that happen actually around this whole label. Like, songs that are released on the label that became huge records later on. And I had to release them first because none of the labels would understand that song or they would see the potential.
No.
Yeah.
Because, that was a new sound. It didn't exist.
Yeah.
What was it like before we're going to dive into the York part, I'm very curious. What was it like in those times that you were bringing that to the radio? You're like, hey guys, this is dance music. The kids are loving this. And these people are sitting there like, no, we're going to play. This is 93, 94. So this is the time where Nirvana came with their albums. And who else was there? The Offspring, for example.
And Too Unlimited. Techno. Which was super embarrassing.
Yeah. What was it like to bring a track like that to the radio back then?
Well, the radio was not very, let's say they weren't very enthusiastic about it.
No.
But in the clubs, it was working. So they had to play it. And of course, they did some remixes. They had hired some remixes, like back in the day for the Nana record, it was Digital Boy, and he made some remixes for the Italian market. And so everybody was doing tweaking a little bit, making their own version.
Yeah.
So it became more radio friendly. But originally, it was really just a club track made. Like, it was a 6 minutes 50 club track, so not even a radio cut we had.
Yeah.
And
the funny thing is that also painting a picture for people that are listening right now and they're growing up in music, like every territory, every country had a different scene, different sounds. So when we jump into the next chapter where you actually start York, you would have Paul Oakenfold, Judge Jules, Scott Bond in the UK creating a sound. You had Belgium, you had Mike Push, Airwave, Yves de Ruiter, they were creating their own trance sound. In the Netherlands, you had Ferry, Armin, Vincent de Moor, Tiesto. And then in Germany, there was Talla, there was Taucher, there was Blank & Jones. I shouldn't forget anyone. Cosmic Gate were doing their thing already as well. And there came you. You guys were shaping up a new sound in Germany as well. In 1997, you started York with...
Yeah. Well, I mean, we always had our own ways because you have to imagine like those long breakdowns. For instance, we have on all the Taucher records, you just mentioned Ayla. Ayla has a long breakdown with a long build up. Yeah. That wasn't really a thing before. It was not so popular to, start a track with a beat and then have a drop, then maybe next drop, and then you have like 2 minutes 50 break in the middle of the record.
Yeah.
And even A&R managers or other people told us you can't do that.
Yeah.
And they called it Rucksack break in German, which means backpack break. So that's the moment when you go to your backpack, get your bottle or whatever to drink, or you order another drink and go back to the dance floor. So they kind of laughed about those long breaks that we were always doing in all the tracks. And later that became the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, endless breakdowns with hands in the air. And we were just stretching it more and more. And, the Wave, for instance, that the remix we made back in the day with Taucher, the Wave has this super long build-up. And you know what? Nowadays, over 20 years later, it still works, which is so cool.
That's amazing. You didn't know back then because everything was new. You were creating something.
No, we didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was also, making the way over to York. When we recorded Awakening, I just wanted to make a more melodic trance that also like this sound, but a bit more melodic and a bit more like, I always imagine being on the ocean and, like feeling the warm sun on my face.
Yeah.
And that was the sound that we were aiming for. And that's how Awakening started, basically.
That defines the sound, the sunshine,
yeah, the sunshine
beach,
and the desire and basically just, the warmth. And
so basically On the Beach should have been the first single when you think about it.
It could have been technically the first single, yeah. But
the Awakening was the first one and it was charting everywhere. Like in the UK, it was almost a top 10 hit.
Yeah. It has a funny story. I mean, it was the Awakening of York.
Yeah.
So, I think it makes sense. Exactly. It has a funny story in the UK because it was the single, and it's and BBC history for that. It's the single that streamed the most, but never reached the top 10 in that year.
Yeah.
So it's streamed. Sorry, oh my god,
sold most,
it's sold. Hello,
people bought
we are
music
not.
back then.
We are not streaming back in those days. My god. Anyways, so it made over 200,000 copies. I remember that, and I was a little surprised that it didn't make the top 10. So it would stick on 11.
You were like, they're selling so much, but it's not getting in there.
Exactly. I mean, can you imagine 200,000 CDs? That's quite.
Imagine how much the number one sold.
Exactly. that we're talking millions.
That's crazy.
So back in 98, 99, when that was, the sales were like peaking. I mean, I think that was a period of time where you sold most.
That's insane. Second single, On the Beach, was a conversion of, just reading this up, was a conversion of British singer-songwriter Chris Rea, and it became number 3 in Germany, United Kingdom, and in the US.
Yes.
So that was a massive hit.
Yeah. So Awakening,
it
is. And
how did you find that sample?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm a big Chris Rea fan. So in my teenage times, I always listened to his albums, and I remember Josephine and On the Beach were always 2 tunes. I was just playing in the background when I'm doing my homework and stuff like that. So I always liked it. And I thought this melody is just, oh my God. And then, of course, Awakening was there before, and I wanted to create some kind of, beachy feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to have this, I wanted to feel like I'm in Ibiza or wherever in the Mediterranean. And then I said to my brother, let's do a cover version.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to sample the guitar, of course, but it was too much noise in the background. And
there was no IA to fix that.
There was no artificial intelligence to fix that. So we had to play it. But there was the other challenge that now we're in 134 BPM was the first version, and the original has about 105 BPM.
Yeah.
So we had to change the phrasing and the rhythm of the guitar to make it fit to
also
proper.
The stretching was not as good as it is right now, of course.
No. There was a sampler stretching, but it sounded terrible. Like everything would sound like this. So we played the guitar. He played the guitar, my brother.
Yeah.
And I remember I layered several guitars to make it wide. So he played a very soft one, a loud one, and I stuck them all together. And in those days, also in that time, the first good Apple computers came out. So we had already a simple hard disk recording possibility, and we had the archive samplers, which weren't small anymore. They had not like suddenly 64 megabytes, still small, 128 megabytes and stuff like that. So
Which was massive back then.
Back in the day was massive. Oh my God.
I never have to change this anymore.
Exactly. That's it. I remember making my sound sets and having all the samples on the sampler, and I thought, okay, this is good.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we created this new version, and we sent it to the publisher to get clearance for it because there weren't so many. Covering was not such a popular thing like later on.
Yeah.
So we had to send it to them, and they said that's a nice version, and they gave us clearance from the UK.
Yeah.
And then we released it and it became a complete banger. I remember it went number 1 in the German dance charts within a short time. And I was like, oh my God, I mean, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then it went even more crazy because Sony picked it up, Sony Music. There was a label in Frankfurt back in the day. This is where they had the German headquarters. It wasn't in Berlin like later on. So A&R would hear this and like, okay, let's push this hard, get some remixes, and suddenly Manifesto was knocking on the door.
That's the version I have on vinyl.
Yeah, which I loved that label. I was like, oh my God, that's so good. So they picked it up and made remixes, of course, and kind of every country did their own versions, and it became definitely the biggest York hit ever, and that song is haunting me till today, and that's why I have on my jeans jacket on the beach forever.
Yeah,
that's what it says on the backside. It's it's the song that I think will haunt me and won't stop, and it's coming back in waves. Then it's quiet for a couple of years.
It's coming back. Suddenly you would sit in a football. You would sit in a football stadium, and suddenly,
yeah.
Hey, wait.
Where is this coming from?
Hey, there's York again. That's amazing, man. Well, that's a good story. So those were the two biggest songs in that time, of course. But in the meantime, and this is, to be really honest, I did not know this until I did research for this podcast, that you were also one of the masterminds behind the DJ Sakin and Friends projects.
Yes.
Of course, you had Braveheart.
Yes.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, it sold 700,000 copies.
Yes. It was crazy.
Protect Your Mind with DJ Sakin.
Exactly.
This was the follow-up.
Yep.
So in the meantime, you were doing York, but that means you were doing all these other projects on the side still as well.
Exactly. Well, I had York and I had DJ Sakin, and then I had Taucher cooking at the same time.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other DJs who were knocking on my door. So it was, for me, super busy. I was every day in the studio till late. And just talking about this DJ Sakin and Friends story, DJ Sakin came one time, then showed me that sequence from the Braveheart movie, and I loved it.
Yeah.
This very sad moment, basically, when the princess gets killed, whatever. So it was super sad. And then the melody starts, and it was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. So we turned it into a club mix, and I was so enthusiastic. I thought, okay, this is too big for Planet Love. This could be a huge record. And that was in, I think 98. And then I was running to Sony Dance Pool in Frankfurt. And the A&R told me, this is rubbish. This will never sell. And
there's the A&R again.
Well, come back with something proper, Torsten, but this is not going to be a success. Then I said, like, damn it, I think this is amazing. So I released it on Planet Love. We're pressing quickly a couple of 100 vinyls.
Yeah.
Put it out
just to
through
test
the
the
distribution,
water.
just to test the water. And then it took an incredible year to play through the clubs. And after a year, I could hear it in every club in Germany.
Yeah.
And then we suddenly saw the vinyl sales going up massively. Yeah, and then I took it, of course, to another record label. And that was N.U.K.E back in the day. It doesn't exist anymore. It was part of EMI Electrola.
Yeah.
And they signed it. And it became number 3, like you said, in Germany and the UK. And
it was a massive hit in the Netherlands as well.
It was massive. It was all over the radio, everywhere. And then I remember that very same A&R, I invited him for my gold party in Frankfurt. So I had my sweet revenge when I met him at my own party and told him, okay. And he was like, okay, I admit it. I was really wrong. And I'm an idiot. So exactly.
And he got fired because of not taking it.
Well, I don't know if that happened, but I had my sweet revenge. And I don't know, I'm not a revengeful person, but
that was funny. That was funny.
It was funny.
Yeah. But still, you stuck around. You didn't ditch the idea, and you decided to release yourself to be like, hey, okay, he doesn't believe in it, but I believe in it, so let's go with it anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people that can take that as a lesson as well. If you listen to the podcast, and sometimes your songs get rejected. I had to say, I still have my emails also that I sent my first demos to Armada, and I got rejected. My heart was broken also. But still, you had to find a way and just keep on going.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's an important lesson. If you want to become successful as a producer or DJ, whatever you do, that giving up quickly, it's the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to stick and believe in your own things, or you have to just have that trust that what you're creating is right and it's the right moment. And I was too stubborn to accept those no's. I was like, no, if you say no, you say no, then I'll do it by myself.
Yeah.
And that stubbornness brought me lots of hits.
Well, there you go. And good samples.
Yep.
Good samples as well. Let's forward a little bit, because at a certain point, you moved to Ibiza, right? So there was the On the Beach, Forever on the Beach,
yes.
part 1.
Yes, that Forever on the Beach came when I moved to Ibiza. I always said...
Why did you leave Germany behind?
Well, in the 90s, Ibiza was so incredible, exciting. And I remember I went there with DJ Taucher on some gigs. Mm-hmm. And I saw all those people dancing. And my God, we were in the Amnesia, I remember. And they opened the roof and I saw 10,000.
When the boot was still up.
Exactly, the old one. And then I saw 10,000 people partying to the sound that we make. And I was like, oh my God, that's heaven. And everybody was happy, in a good mood. And then I remember I came out in the morning, like 7, 8 a.m. And the sun was up and it was warm, not cold like in Germany. And I was like, okay, you know what? This is a really nice place to be. And from that moment on, it was, I think 96 or something, I made this pact with myself that I said, whenever you can afford to leave the country and live in Ibiza, you want to do that.
Yeah. And that happened in 2004?
No.
Earlier?
Way before.
Okay.
That happened in 98 when I had Braveheart.
So you had the idea in 1997, 1998?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. 98, when Braveheart went number 3, I already ran to my bank and said, okay, I need some cash. Guys. I have a number 3 hit. I have a okay credit score. Yeah. So I'm going to move to Ibiza. And I moved.
Yeah. So you bought a place or you rented a place in Ibiza?
I bought a place straight away.
You still have it?
No, I sold it sadly 2010. So I kept it for many years.
Yeah. Good market.
Yeah, definitely.
And it paid for the house in N.U.K.E.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. You also work with one of the still legends, I guess, Sven Greimer, DJ Shock.
Yes.
You found 7 Sense recordings.
Exactly.
And another alias I found out yesterday that I didn't know that it was you as well as the Mandela Brothers.
Exactly, yeah. That was the trance name for Sven Greimer, DJ Shock, and myself.
Yeah.
I mean, we became really good friends in Ibiza. He came frequently then, and we did a lot of releases together. And I mean, he was such a lovely guy. I really liked him a lot. And I was deeply shocked by his passing.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
way too young also.
Way too young, yeah.
Well, luckily you still have the good memories.
I have beautiful memories of him, and sometimes I smile and think about it.
No, that's good. And you still have the music, of course. That's the music, same with Tillman, for
exactly.
example.
Music will be there. His music will be there forever in our tracks, which is great.
That's amazing. But then at a certain moment you were like, okay, Ibiza is not warm enough for me anymore. I'm going to move to the Caribbean, to the Indies. What made you decide to move all the way there?
Well, okay, I have to take a little breath. That's a longer story.
Yeah.
So I was roughly 9 years in Ibiza, and everything was working well. It was all fine, but I got a little bit, because I wasn't there just for the season. I was there full time.
Yeah, so it's not a vacation anymore.
No, it's not a vacation anymore. So I'm there December, January, February, the whole year round, always in Ibiza. Artists coming, going, and it happened that I got my first daughter there.
Yeah,
and I remember I brought her to the kindergarten in San Jose. I had a house in Escobel's beautiful little village close to the coast. And I went to the kindergarten, and there was a guy sleeping on the sidewalk. It was some raver left over from the whatever Sunday before, sleeping. And I walked there hand in hand, and she looks at me and asks me like, "Daddy, why is this man sleeping on the sidewalk?" And I told her he did party too much.
Yeah.
And suddenly I had this whole picture in front of me. You're trying to raise a child here with all that party around and all this craziness. And I knew it for myself that, I mean, In Ibiza, you don't party on Saturday, you party all the week through.
Every single day.
Every single day. So yeah, that was a moment when I went back to my wife back in the day and said like, what do you think? I mean, and she said like, you know what? I had the same feeling. For her, we should maybe find a place that is a bit more peaceful and
it's not it's not an island to raise a kid.
No, I think it's not a great island to raise a kid. Some people might disagree with me. Also, back in the day, the schooling was not good at all. I heard it's gotten a little better now, but that's now many years ago. I mean, we talk like here proper.
This was when Ibiza was only a rave island. Or
exactly.
On one side you had the hippies, on one side you had the ravers.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no people just living there.
It was wild. It was really wild. Also, it's now so much more controlled and everything.
No social media and
is more sorted now. It used to be a wild place. Anyways, so I'm going to the harbor. I had a boat back in the day in San Antonio, so I'm going to the harbor. And my friend is cleaning his boat. And I go to my boat and check some stuff. And he's like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm good. And it's like, you know what? We're thinking maybe going somewhere else. And he said like, oh, that's not a bad idea. I've been to the Caribbean. It's like, oh, where did you go? So like, yeah, there's this amazing place. And let me tell you, it's beautiful. The land is cheap and it's always warm weather. It's called Anguilla.
Yeah.
I said, oh, Anguilla. Okay, that sounds interesting. So yeah, I finished my boat, clean everything, lock it, go in the car, drive home. And then I tell my wife, hey, I heard about this amazing place in the Caribbean. Tony just told me about. It's called and something with A.
I
forgot the name. And then she went on Google and said like, Google was there exactly. So she typed in A something Caribbean and Antigua comes up way for Anguilla.
Okay,
So Antigua was the first name showing up. And she asked me, so was it Antigua? And I said, yes, that was it.
It was Amsterdam, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, was Amsterdam. So yeah, we just made, quick decisions, said, okay, why don't we just take a vacation there?
Yeah.
So we booked a vacation, left Ibiza, went to Antigua. The locals say Antigua, not Antigua, but it's named from the Spanish conquistadores. So it's of course correct would be Antigua. We loved the island. It was just a peaceful little place with endless beaches and very little tourists. And we fell in love with the island. And I went back and we both thought, okay, why don't we do a test year? And we keep the house, everything, keep the home base in Ibiza and just see how we can do a year in
There's always an escape to go back. Yeah.
Exactly. So if we don't like it, we can go back. So I went to the harbor, see my friend again, Tony. He's like, hey, Tony, oh my God, thank you so much. Antigua was amazing. And he said, like, you idiot.
What are you talking about?
You idiot. I told you Anguilla. I was like, oh my God, I went to the wrong island.
You're still there.
Yeah, turning out it was the right place. So, Anguilla, I visited after that. It is just too quiet. There's nothing going on. Antigua has a big yacht harbor. There's lots of events in December, January. There's huge regattas. There's half of Ibiza or Mallorca. They're coming all to Antigua.
Really?
So the island gets occupied with lots of people I actually know from there.
Okay.
And they stay there during the winter because it's warm there. And
so they take like the seasons.
Yeah, they take the seasons there with their yachts and then move the boats back to the Mediterranean once it's summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But you stick around over there. And well, sometimes you go back to Germany to do shows in Europe.
Exactly. Yeah, I play my shows here, but I always go back there. It's my home base.
That's amazing. I'm jealous. Well, I shouldn't be jealous because if you want to do it, you should just do it.
Exactly. Everybody can do whatever you want.
That's very, very true. 2011, big thing because, and I still remember because back in the days I was still A&Ring also for Armada Music. You joined forces with Armada, with Planet Love.
Correct. I mean, we know each other for quite a while.
Yeah.
We started to, join forces and give Planet Love Records a bigger platform with the distribution because our distribution was small and limited, and we thought it's the right decision to, boost that connection and form this joint venture.
Yeah.
And it was a good decision back in the day.
Yeah. Which went on for a few years. Then you started doing things on your own again. And now you're sort of back also with Armada.
life is a circle. I always say that.
Yeah.
So we kind of separated after a couple of years, and then not recently, but 3-4 years ago, we suddenly start talking again, and now Armada is again the home base for lots of beautiful releases, and we have all the classics together. And I mean, we heard incredible remixes coming out on Armada from Kryder on the beach, for instance.
Yeah.
And there's even more super cool stuff coming in the future. So
it's one of those songs that just keeps on giving.
Exactly,
on
again,
the beach forever.
On the beach forever. Yeah. So it's a very fruitful, nice partnership.
But it's not only the classics, because you're very productive in the studio. Is it in the studio again, or did you put your focus somewhere in the, let's say, between 2010 and 2020 with different projects or something like that? Because York is really making a comeback again with new music this year.
Yeah, the reason for that is very simple. It was my daughter.
Yeah.
So Aura, my daughter Jamie, became huge suddenly, and she started to sing when she was 12 years old. And she had this incredible voice. I was just,
wait a minute, what is happening
I
here?
listened to her in the studio and was like, oh my God, that child can sing.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I worked with lots of singers before, but I realized her voice is so distinctive, is so different, that I always said she has definitely a shot.
Yeah.
And so I helped her starting, doing covers. And the typical thing would be back in the day, you do like a YouTube cover and you try to go viral. TikTok wasn't a thing and things like that. So we did YouTube covers, which went indeed viral.
Mm-hmm.
And so I slowly started a career with her together and organized first writing sessions in Los Angeles. We were flying over. So you have to imagine I had to pause all my own activities.
Yeah.
So York was on pause. Planet Love was more or less on pause. I just let it run on the side.
Yeah.
And then I spent the next 5 years focusing really on my daughter's career and helping her. Also because she was a minor.
Yeah.
And I had to travel with her. She wouldn't be allowed to go on a plane and go and fly to another country by herself or even doing shows.
I think a lot of people forget that in that point in her career, she was still a minor. That's actually crazy.
She was 15 and playing her first shows by herself and first little headline tour with 16. And then we had big shows with Ellie Goulding or Louis Capaldi. We were opening for them. And then she did this massive Alan Walker show where the first time she was by herself, after we played 75 shows together, I remember that counting.
Yeah.
I, could let her go the first time by herself because she was by the time.
Were you?
Oh my God. I mean, I knew she's 18, she's very mature, and she knew already touring from our, touring before, but she went alone to, Jakarta, Indonesia, and playing there for like 15, 20,000 people.
Yeah.
And, you see some or hear some dangerous stuff too, like big, massive festivals there can be dangerous if somebody's panicking and stuff like that. So of course, I was always shielding her and guarding her. And it was for me, I was a bit nervous until I saw her then performing. And that was actually in Amsterdam, funny enough. It was an Alan Walker show in Amsterdam. And I thought, okay, it's fine. She does it amazing by herself. I was super proud of her. Yeah.
What kind of advice do you give her as an artist from the stuff that you've learned in the past for scoring massive hits, doing all these shows around the world? What kind of advice did you give her to make sure that her feet stay on the ground?
Well, for me, I always told her, you have to stay humble.
Yeah.
And I think that is a key element, is like, it doesn't matter how many millions, billions, she has over 1 billion stream already 3 years ago.
Yeah.
How many billion streams you have, just stay a human. And I always remind her that, you're nothing without your fans. But she has that in her blood to be just a very kind person to everyone.
That's how you raised her.
Yeah, I tried it. I mean, it's just, but that's how she is. So I didn't really have to give her much advice. I mean, it's she does her thing by herself, and now she runs her own operation, and I'm just telling her my opinion if she asks me to.
Does she send her music to you for your opinion first?
She plays me everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you reject some of her stuff also? You're like, you should do this or you should do that.
Actually, she's so freaking creative that she surprises me every time. Like, and she's not particular.
Does she inspire you also? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we inspire each other because she's so wild with her style, and she would put like a break drum and bass beat suddenly in a track, or she has this super electronic beat singing on top, or then she has just a piano and some weird atmospheres in the background and just her voice shining on top. So you can't really nail her down to dance music, and it's just, she's a real artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love the interactions that you have on social media together. It's so cute.
Oh yeah. We support each other.
But it's in a nice way. Like the t-shirt you were doing with blah, blah, blah. She's like, where did you get that?
Exactly.
That's really cute, to be honest.
Oh, you saw that? Okay.
Yeah. I see everything. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
You worked with her also in 2023 together with A.T.B. A.T.B. York and Aura, Highs and Lows. But one that's really stood out for me was Sehnsucht.
Yeah.
Sehnsucht.
Sehnsucht.
That's a song together with Purple Schulz and your daughter. That must have been a special one to write in German.
It was super, super special for us because also Purple Schulz, I admired him, since ever. And we wanted to do something different. She only sings the bridge part there in all the choruses, but it was also the very first time she was singing in German. And it was an experiment, but we both said, we have to try new things sometimes.
Yeah.
And it was super well received. I mean, everyone, even Purple's older fans, loved it. And it went high up in the charts and also the video charts because we made a quite nice video.
Beautiful video, yeah.
And for us it was a success and one of our experiments that we like to do sometimes.
Must have been weird for her because she didn't grow up in Germany to sing something in German.
No. And funny enough, she speaks better English than German.
Yeah. Well, it's not funny. And that's not funny because it's logical because she was raised somewhere else than in Germany.
True, yeah.
So she has a weird German accent when you talk to her?
She says sometimes weird things and like throws in different words.
You're like, what?
She would say invent a word that's half German and half English. And then I tell her like, hey, that word doesn't exist.
It's not a word. Well, now it exists.
Exactly.
Last but not least, I also want to jump into 2024 because besides all the York things that you're doing, you also release a lot of music now as Torsten Stenzel.
Correct.
Of course, the one that you played in the mix today, the rework of Did You Hear Me with Talla. Big shout out to Talla, amazing guy as well. Friday night on Future Sequence. And of course, the remix, your remix that you did of Interstellar. Luckily it worked. We had some technical issues when you wanted to play it.
Oh my God. Yeah,
that's the funny thing is that people don't see it, but we can talk about it here. That you wanted to play the track, but the DJ said no.
Yeah, the player stopped working and said like track locked and all kind of weird commands, and suddenly I couldn't move it anymore, so it was stuck.
Never seen that before.
And I've never had that before, so it was just like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
But you have to try to smile and overplay everything.
I think the funny thing is that no one that listened to the mix probably noticed it, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I got really nervous.
One track that I want to highlight also is the Mawazo.
Yeah.
You have a special bromance, of course, also with Steve Bryan.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Because you worked with him quite a few times.
Yeah, I mean, Steve is one of my assets. He is always in my studio, and since years, every year we have our session together.
Yeah.
So he's coming to the island and stays with me a couple of weeks.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, every year, and that's now I think for 7 years already.
Yeah.
So I have other guys coming, but he's a very constant, and we are such good friends. So we just create a lot of music together, and I'm collecting his ideas. And then, I mean, you have to imagine I sit a lot alone in the studio, and I was sitting a lot alone in the past. So, and even now you get files from someone abroad, and you get your files and you work on it, you send it back, then they give you an opinion, then they add some stuff, and that's how you work on collaborations if you're not together in the room. But it's just so much better to be in a room with someone.
You feed each other energy.
Exactly. And you're like, oh my God, I love that. And all these kind of things.
Go back to this, go back to that.
Yep.
Use that sound.
Yeah.
Or,
So
there's actually a lot of funny thing that I want to show you.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Steve Bryan and... shit.
You see, he didn't know how to make the liners either. So he's not the only one.
Exactly. I was
But
struggling.
you're right. I guess it's always nice to sit in the studio with someone, feed each other the energy, and I can always recommend you, like, if you're working on some music together and you have plans to do more music in the future, spend some time and money and just go to each other and sit in the studio together, and most of the times you would create. Even if you would create the ideas and then work it out later separately by yourself, but
Exactly.
making the ideas together is just something magical.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. Tell us about Mawazo, because that's a special tune that you did.
Yeah, Mawazo was, I would say more like a proper progressive house, like a house tune.
Yeah.
I always, lean over to I think house always is something that also really interests me.
Yeah.
And you will ever so often hear from me something that's not trance at all. And this one was just so special for me because the vocal is basically a lady from Curaçao. And now here's the interesting or sad connection. Now Curaçao got hit 2 days ago from a massive hurricane and got completely destroyed. I think only 10% of the houses survived. And this lady is from that island.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's a lot of people from Curaçao living in the Netherlands also. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of damage. And I got this vocal randomly on the documentary and ending up using it. And I thought, this is so beautiful. And she sings in a Caribbean accent, which is really hard to understand for anyone. It's a mix patois with other accents down there. What is it called? Forgot. Anyway, so it's a rare accent, barely anyone speaks. And she sings "Fly high, dove, fly high," which is so beautiful. The image of that dove flying over the Caribbean Sea and her old broken voice singing that. That I got really goosebumps making this one. I think it's very special to me.
I can imagine. It's a beautiful, beautiful song.
Yeah.
Please do more stuff like that. And also, I mentioned it before, the tracks that you made with Chris Howard, Deus Ex Machine and King Says Bad. And you told us already there's more stuff coming with Chris, with David Westmeyer. That's his real name. Also the singer of, if you listen to my music, Bloodstream that I did with Ferry Course, is the same singer, same writer. Amazing talent, David. So shout out to David Westmeyer.
Yeah, shout out.
A few questions that came in from the fans. I don't know what this means, but hey, Itza Bai wants to know. Well, my real question is, do you like cheese?
That's actually a really good question because I have a love-hate relationship with cheese.
There you go.
I mean, he
must
have, yeah. Well, actually, I never told that anyone, but I had problems eating cheese when it was not melted.
Okay, yeah.
So once the cheese is like uncooked,
when it's on a pizza or lasagna, it's
I
fine.
can eat it on the pizza, but once it's just like a slice of cheese and like, here, you have that. And I'm like, oh, no.
Okay. So you like cheese if it's melted.
Exactly.
All right. Fascinating Fats wants to know what projects are in the pipeline for you that are coming up next.
Yeah, we have the collaboration with David coming. Mm-hmm. So that is something out very soon. I will announce it on my socials. There is so much in the pipeline with York and Torsten. I mean, stay tuned. There's a beautiful single on Pure Trance Records that I also played. Stay tuned. I can't even think about everything coming out.
It's York on Instagram, and you'll know more very soon.
Exactly. Follow me, please, and you will see what's happening.
Yeah. Celio S82 asked how many times. I'm not sure what it means, but the song. Wait, let me read this out and let's make some sense out of how many times you create a legendary song on the beach, and which person is behind the voice. So let's say, what's the person behind the voice? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because you told most about On the Beach already.
Yeah, that is actually a singer from Frankfurt called Sabine Heil.
Okay.
She never sang on a dance record. She did something like a Marlene Dietrich show, which is so weird. It's like she does something completely else. And I just heard her powerful voice.
You're like, okay, that's her.
Yeah, and I was this, on the beach. Like, okay, that sounds good. That's what I need. And yeah, I invited her for a session and she sang all those parts that we still use today.
That's amazing. That's answers all the questions that we were submitted that we didn't talk about that. Yeah, I think we could go on forever because I still wrote down as well. You should tell us more about your boxer. And
Rosie, I love her.
Yeah, and also because we have to address this because you're also a diplomat.
Yeah, that is the funniest thing.
Because you moved to the island, to Antigua.
Yeah.
And you're a German on the island, but then how did you become a diplomat on the island for Germany?
Well, so I needed a new passport and it was, was done. So I went to the German embassy in Trinidad, which is the headquarters. And I went there and said, okay, I need a passport. And they said, yeah, okay, fill out this form, do that. We're processing everything. After I'm done, they asked me like, can you come? The ambassador wants to talk to you. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Did I do something wrong?
I'm going to get my passport.
And then he said like, don't worry about it. It's nothing bad. I was like, okay, good. So I went to his room and he said like, hi, blah, blah, blah. I'm the German ambassador. He's responsible for the whole region. So like 26 islands.
All the Caribbean, yeah.
All the Caribbean. I'm like, yeah, I introduced myself and we had a coffee together. And then he asked me like, oh, I have a problem. I don't know the opposition leader in Antigua, which was Torsten Brown. And randomly, I know him.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I know him. And funny enough, so I arranged a meeting between him and Torsten Brown because he wanted to meet the opposition. It's always custom to meet the leading party and the opposition party for all diplomats. So
as an ambassador, you need
to have relationship with everyone.
Yeah.
So he came, we had a dinner together, and suddenly I'm sitting with the prime minister at dinner and the German embassy on a table.
You're like, what is happening here?
And I was like, what is exactly happening? What are you doing here? And
you're like on the beach.
Exactly, and like anyway, so this was a serious political meeting, and they're talking about politics and stuff, and I kind of faded away after a while, and they just blubbered about all politics and stuff, and so the meeting went well, and then this man became our prime minister.
Okay,
the next election he won, and then I get a call from the embassy. So just one question: could you imagine representing Germany on your island? And I said, yeah, what do you mean? It's like, well, we're looking for a German consul running the vice consulate and representing us in Antigua and Barbuda.
Okay.
And I said, yeah, what do I have to do? And I was, of course, I had no idea from diplomatic work and what that involves. And basically they said, okay, you're responsible for every German citizen that is in distress on this island or islands. And I said, yeah, so I'm helping basically, yeah. So I was signing up for it. I got appointed from Berlin, from the foreign ministry and from the minister back in the day. And yeah, that is a couple of years ago now. And it is sometimes quite busy. Sometimes it isn't. It depends on what's happening. But I have also a second assistant there when I'm not there, because we have up to 4,000 tourists per week in the season.
From Germany?
From Germany.
Oh, wow. That's a lot, actually.
Yeah. And then they get robbed. They lose their passports. They even die. I have to send home the dead bodies of people who pass away, for instance. Then I contact their families over the police.
Yeah.
If somebody loses a passport, you cannot leave the country. So I will make him a new passport. And so it's a variety of things where I have to help people. And
that's a big responsibility, to be honest.
It's quite some responsibility, but I like it a lot. It just gives me a completely different view on life, doing this more administrative work and helping, and it's so different than my music.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it also.
But this is something that I like to address sometimes in the podcast as well, is that to create music, the output, you need to get input. And you have to get that from somewhere else than sitting in your studio. So I guess dealing with these people, and they are on their vacation, but you get them in distress situations, that can somehow bring you input as well to get into the studio.
Massive. I mean, just what I see there and the things that happened in the last years, you could just write a book about it.
Maybe you should.
It's ridiculous what people do. And if you, I mean, I could fill the next hour telling you stories about tourists, but we don't do that now. It's just, you're right. It's a big inspiration.
That's amazing. Well, let's write down that next time when you're going to be here in the studio, we need to dive into that a little bit deeper.
We'll do that.
Well, we've been talking for more than an hour already. So thank you so much for answering all these questions and tell a little bit more about. And the funny thing is that I only touched like this much of your discography. We didn't talk about aliases and whatnot. So it's amazing to have you in the studio. And also, like I said, you're one of my favorite producers from the past as well, and inspired me to become where I am right now. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to see you here in the studio again. Thank you so much, Torsten.
Thanks for having me.
All right, this is the podcast for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. We're going to have someone from the US in the studio, Morgan Madison. If you have any questions for him, make sure to check his Instagram or write them down here in the comments. See you then. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in. Check all previous episodes on YouTube or your favorite podcast portal.